What's up, everybody, and thanks for listening to the Whatcast. Mike, we're going to have a fun one tonight. We have covered some weird ranches in our time, and even after we cover this one, there'll be other ranches of weirdness that we'll cover.
I like ranches of weirdness.
Me too. It's such a weird, I don't know, pocket corner little thing of the world of the paranormal. It has like this Western theme to it that seems like a cool sci-fi movie.
I blame the cows.
I think, I don't know. I've always had a theory that the people who live that lifestyle, like throughout history, like the people who tend to the livestock animals of our species, I think they see things that most people don't. I think there's a lot of, it makes me think of the creatures of the Lumberwood stuff. You know, maybe some of the things that they said were true because they're out in an area where people aren't going. Maybe they are seeing some weird shit that they're not supposed to, but I've always felt the same way about ranchers and shit. With so much land and huge fields, there's got to be weird shit that goes on.
Maybe. Or maybe it's they allow their imaginations to take over. Just sitting out there, you know, watching the livestock, tending to your crops or whatever, and you'd look up and you're like, oh shit. Is that a pterodactyl? No, that's not a pterodactyl, but how cool would it be if it was? And then you let your mind wander, and then pterodactyls are coming. But I don't know if it's, I think to me it doesn't, I don't necessarily think that it's the fact that they're on a ranch. I think it's more where the ranch is located in a lot of these cases. And a lot of these cases, I think the shit just gets blown out of proportion. Or you've got a crackpot who says that he decapitates aliens with a katana that fell out of the back of a truck.
Well, that might not be such a crackpot story after tonight's episode.
What? Is this crackpotier?
Yes, but it took an interesting case. You just mentioned about the position and location of these ranches, and you've said before, I think it's Skinwalker and, Stardust. Aren't they on like the same longitude line or something like that?
No, they're not. They're not on the same longitude line. They're I can't. I think it like forms a triangle formation with Skinwalker, Stardust, and another ranch. I don't remember the name of the other ranch, but I promise at some point in the future we'll do a show about it.
Yeah, you had mentioned that you had found a bunch on it, and I was surprised that there was another third ranch of weirdness. So, this may be...
And apparently now another one.
Yeah, and then there's actually another weird ranch where I found this story, so I'll look into that. But I got this story from a place that puts out cool stories and sometimes untrue stories. But after looking into the story, I was pleasantly surprised with what I found. Even just going off the information that I got from this video, it was a video on YouTube. The ranches we have covered, like you said, the guy's cuckoo bird story about using a ninja sword that fell off the back of a truck. I mean, there's a couple comments we got about that episode where they said we got everything wrong about the case or something like that, and it made me laugh because you got all the information from the book written by that job.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe they are privy to something that he's not. I don't know. Or maybe it was just the fact that I didn't really do anything. I didn't cover anything that happened after the book, because there's like a whole sale thing that happened, and I don't know. There's drama with that, I guess, but. I was more interested in the story of what happened there rather than what happened afterwards. So if I fucked that up, that's my bad. And I will openly admit that I did not look into anything that happened after his story, because the story is just fucking crazy and wacky. And it's basically our bread and butter. So I had to tell the story, and what happened afterward, I don't much give a shit. I think that it's a crazy story, and I don't necessarily believe it, but it's a fucking awesome story anyway.
Right. And with Skinwalker and Stardust, it's the stuff that's reported is always just so insane and bizarre. And that's why I love the ranch stories. And like I said, I was surprised with the stuff I found out after looking into this stuff. But I'm not going to go off of anything that was from this video as far as what they said. There's stuff I'm going to talk about that's in their video, but I'm going to tell you this story straight from the man's mouth himself. The story's about a man named Jeff Sailors, and he worked in horsehair at the time. I don't know any about ranch life, but maybe those good old Rocky Mountain horsehair braided socks and headbands. I don't know. He did some craft with them, but he had just moved to Colorado, and he had done a trade show. And while he was there, he stopped at this Western shop in the area that sold his stuff, and things were going well. And he quickly realized that he was going to have to stay in Colorado to further his business. And it just so happened that the lady who owned this shop was married to the owner of a place that he's calling Buffalo Ranch. Now, I know that the location and the actual name of this ranch has been changed to protect the people who own it and the land that's there. And after listening to him talk about it, I think he's kind of just calling it the Buffalo Ranch, not as a name, but that's a chicken ranch, that's a cow ranch, and that's a buffalo ranch because that's what they had there, amongst other things, but mainly buffalo.
So it's a literal buffalo ranch. It's not just a name.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
But after a short time, the ranch owners hired Jeff to run the ranch as foreman. This is 15,000 acres, 1,200 buffaloes, and for the most part, just Jeff, which is fucking a dream job, right?
If you're into that sort of thing, sure.
You wouldn't want to fucking tend to some buffaloes and ride around on a horse and fucking
I would. I would love that, but I don't think that's something for everybody.
Yeah, I would love to do that. So far, Jeff is the man. And he was the real deal, too. He didn't just fiddle with horsehair, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But he ran the ranch for 9 years, but he says weird shit started there 3 years before he started running the ranch. And that's when they started finding their buffalo mutilated. In the traditional ways, of course, the removal of eyes, tongues, internal organs, but some in some very weird and strange ways. Every cow, bull, or buffalo that was mutilated on the ranch had a reddish-orange triangle, quote, painted on their foreheads.
That's new.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of something like that.
Me either. And it becomes significant later. This was done to the extreme of even if a pregnant cow was killed, it would have a reddish-orange triangle painted on its forehead. The fetus would be removed and placed upon the mother's rib cage with, again, a painted triangle on its forehead. So you're not your traditional mutilations so much in that aspect. And there's, in my notes, I have an example he gives that's called the PP. He goes into detail about how some of these mutilations, the wiener of these buffalo would be removed. But he would explain that on average, they're about 3 feet long. And the way they were removed is that he explains that they're covered in this like this sleeve and it's attached to their stomach. And these penises were removed all the way against the body, all the way down against the body, in between this sheath that covers it. And there was never any blood. So he never could figure out how that could happen, how somebody can do that. And like I said, he's like the real deal outdoorsman cowboy guy. He started doing taxidermy when he was 12. So he says, I've cut every fucking animal from every angle, every which way. And I can't figure out how they'd be able to put something 3 feet long all the way to the against the body of the animal and remove its wiener and not cause bleeding or leave any type of blood anywhere.
Yeah, and you hear that sort of thing in a lot of mutilation cases with things being It always seems to be like the genitals are removed and the anal cavity in a lot of cases is completely cored out. So it's just like this, all the like the actual asshole and the colon and all that is just removed, leaving this big gaping hole where their rectum should be, but no blood.
Yeah. He said sometimes they would find animals splayed open from a chest to groin crescent shape cut. And he said there would be no blood, but he noted that on the left side, it was nice and clean cut, like it was done with a scalpel. And the same shape cut on the right side, it said that it was destroyed, smelly, and burnt. And I mean, it's usually one or the other, right? There's usually like cauterizing going on, or just clean cuts with no blood.
Yeah. Well, typically the cuts themselves appear to have been like instantly cauterized.
Right. So this is some pretty heavy cattle mutilation stuff going on. And he said that the locals always blamed it on, quote, the aliens.
The locals.
Yeah. But he never saw anything like that. And he said he experienced the more, quote, extraordinary stuff. Now, like I said, I get to hear it from this dude's mouth because this original video that I got this story from gives you a link to his fucking YouTube channel. I mean, the guy's has a YouTube channel and tells you the story. And he's, of course, a sun-bleached, bearded mountain man he tells a great story. He's got a great attitude. I like the guy. I like his stories anyway. Nobody crucify me if he ends up being like a baby-eating lizard man later. That doesn't mean I like the fact that he's a baby-eating lizard man. I like his stories.
It means I like him more if that's the case. I don't have an opinion on him right now, but if he's a baby-eating lizard man, then he's A-okay in my book.
But he tells the story, and he tried to tell it in chronological order, and he said that he's got a lot more stories to tell. So, but these are a few of the examples of this extraordinary activity that he saw. The first one he talks about is I call the story "The Wind." He said that it was a clear night. There was not one cloud in the sky, and he and his girlfriend had spent the day horseback riding, tending to the buffalo and the cattle. And it was late, and they had went to bed for the night, and they were asleep. And he said, then suddenly and immediately, the house was hit by a very, very violent wind, a wind so powerful that it shook the entire house. I believe the windows shattered. It grew so strong and fast, it started knocking over furniture, blowing everything off the walls. He mentioned that he had a big old heavy set of moose antlers that were bolted into like a log cabin part of the house. And he said those were ripped right off the wall, clean off the wall. And he said the wind got even stronger. And Jeff had figured that this had to be a tornado. So he grabbed his girlfriend and dove into the closet to try to seek some type of shelter from shit that was flying around. He said the wind and the shaking of the house grew even stronger. And for about 4 minutes, they sat there like that, when suddenly and at once, in an instant, it all stopped and everything was dead quiet.
I've heard that sort of thing happen before.
Have you?
Yeah, I've heard about it. I can't remember actually, no, I do remember. It just occurred to me. Something similar happened in the Wendigo folklore story from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Not so much with blowing shit around, but having the sound of this incredibly strong wind blowing, and then they go out and there's nothing there and everything's silent. But that's folklore. That's not an actual report. So never mind, I guess. I just when you said that, I'm like, oh, that sounds like that one thing, and then it clicked to me where that one thing came from, and it wasn't a real real event. Yeah. So I've just wasted everybody's time.
Yay. He said he had to climb over all sorts of debris from the wind but he quickly ran outside, only to find that the sky was as clear and calm and peaceful as it was before they went to bed. He said after a brief search around the house and the property, he found a perfect circle around the house, and the house seemed to be in the center of this circle. And he said from any outside perimeter of the house that it was about 40 feet in diameter. And he kind of describes it in a weird way. There's the property, he's like in the middle of it. So his house area is fenced off, but there's these cattle gates that you drive up to it and it'll open and you go into the house. And then there's another one on the other side to where it opens and you can go into that field. And he says that once a day they'll move the buffalo around and they'll walk through there. So the ground's real trampled up. But he said that this wind kind of treated the ground to where it made it look like nobody had ever been there in 100 years. He said that when you drove up there, no matter what, you're leaving tracks in the dirt. And he said that it was to the extent of outside of this gate, you can see his girlfriend's car tracks from her coming over that day up to this gate, and then they disappear after they go past the gate.
Like, when you say disappeared, do you mean like they just faded away, or?
No, he said that this whatever this wind did, it treated, like he said, he described it as that it just scattered everything to where it looked like it was no one had been there for 50 years. He said 50, then 100 years. But it just looked like no.
So it wasn't even like it faded away. It just wasn't there anymore.
Yes. Any use of that area, I guess. Well, he got a real good scare when he finally went back inside. He went into his kitchen to find everything. He said everything in his refrigerator was now placed on the dinner table, the kitchen table, in the shape of a triangle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I did. When I read this, or I read about it, and then I listened to him talk about it in his videos. And of course, I'll put that link in the show notes for this episode. And again, always check our YouTube channel when there's a playlist for show notes stuff. If I talk about a YouTube video in any episode, it's going to be there. But when he was talking about this in this shape of a triangle, and it gets weirder with this fucking triangle, trust me, it almost started taking like a cult feel. But there's things that are happening that like a cult can't do or doesn't do. More UFO weird stuff like this. I mean, did a UFO just hover over his house and that was the effect of that happening? But this symbol of this triangle I find strange. And for them, I mean, if you watch his videos, he has pictures of all this shit. He has pictures of these.
Really?
Yeah, these little calves with this painted symbol on their head. And it looks painted. It's very bizarre, this symbol showing up. I've never heard of anything like that. It kind of made me question everything. It put me, it made a flag go up in my mind. But I just because it's so strange and I've never heard of it. What do you make of a symbol like that appearing on these things?
To me, if there's a symbol that makes me think that there's human involvement. That it's not, because if it's aliens, why would they paint a picture? It doesn't make sense. Like if these animals are, if the paint was like to mark them, say for later abduction, maybe, but animals that are being mutilated are having this painted on them, and then you've got the weird everything in the kitchen thrown around into a triangle shape. Like, that's fucking weird. I don't know what to make of that. Like, to me, that seems like some horror movie shit. Like a cult worshiping some sort of like evil entity or demon or something.
Right. That's true. It does have that feel to it. And this is after all this wind had disrupted everything too. So it's definitely a paranormal event. I mean, I don't think, somebody snuck in and did that.
Yeah. Like it could be in this scenario, it could be like this weird cult sacrifices these animals in order to summon the spirit or demon or whatever you want to call it. And then with every animal, their like weakening the veil between realities, and then the demon starts creeping through, and then you start getting like hauntings, and then the hauntings take place until it's strong enough to finally make its way through into our world, at which point it will, probably eat innocent people and, burn civilization to the ground.
Well, he talks about another instance that I call the music in the birds. He talks about being jolted awake in the middle of the night by insanely loud music. And I mean loud. Loud enough, again, like the wind, to shake the entire house, vibrating the windows to the point of cracking. He would get up, run outside, only to see nothing that could have played music so loudly, and the music would suddenly stop. And the original source that I got this from, they said that it was blasting Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song, which would have made me move. I would have been like, no, not at all.
I've had enough, Robert Plant. I've had enough.
But he said it was always like modern day, for the time, rock music.
That's kind of weird.
Yeah, for a while. Then it turned to the sounds of birds.
Like while it was playing, or just like over time, instead of music, they started getting loud birds?
Instead of music, it turned to birds. And I mean all the birds. Thousands of birds. And Jeff knew birds. Like I said, he started doing taxidermy on birds at the age of 12. He was able to identify most of the birds. He even knew that some of the bird sounds were exotic birds. And it would just happen.
Exotic birds were one of the things that were reported at Skinwalker as well.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
There would be exotic birds that would show up. I think, if I remember correctly, I think it was parrots and macaws that would show up.
That's very strange. But he said, he'd run outside and there would be nobody, no birds, no nothing. He said that his house was 1.5 miles away from any road. So if there's anybody there playing music to the volume that he's describing, I mean, he'd run out there and it would stop the second he got out there. And same thing for these birds. But that's in the middle of the night, waking him up. That is that had to be a very strange experience. I mean, even if it happened once, but he said it happened multiple times.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that.
I don't know. To me, it makes me think of some type of mimicry.
I didn't think about that, but yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Like the crying baby voices that are in the woods in certain cases.
Right. I'm still tripping out that tropical bird sounds being heard at Skinwalker, because that's so bizarre. When he was talking about, he was able to say there were the sounds of swallows, there were sounds of this, there were sounds of that, and then even some tropical birds. So it's almost like whatever was generating that sound fucked up. They got the jungle sounds mixed with the forest sounds for a second.
And that explains the Robert Plant. It just got confused. It was just throwing all the animal sounds out there, and Robert Plant sounds enough like a hoot and holler an animal. It's just like, yeah, why not?
Are you a big Led Zeppelin fan, Mike?
No, I am not.
Good. I thought I was alone in that.
No, when I was in like middle school, I was really into Led Zeppelin, but I was just kind of figuring out music at that point. And now it's like I still, there are some songs by Led Zeppelin that I do genuinely like, but I have to listen to them sparingly, like, with months between listening, because Robert Plant just drives me fucking nuts. Like just his sounds that he makes, and even just his like singing voice, it just grates on me, man. And I can't listen to more than one song at a time. Like if someone wants to listen to a Led Zeppelin album, I can't be present. I'll stick around for a song and then I'm good.
Yeah, he mentioned another song. I forget what it was. I can't think of it now.
Was it Stairway to Heaven?
No, it was a different band. I forget. But he said it was so loud. He just waiting for the windows to explode. That'd be fucking scary, dude. I don't know if you've ever been waken up by something extremely loud, like super loud like that, but that's fucking
I used
rough.
to have a friend who had one of those old tube TVs. There was something fucky with it where it would just out of nowhere turn on, and I mean you don't have this these days where if there's no channel, typically your TV is just blue. But back in the day, if you had it on, if you went to a channel that doesn't exist, it would just be static with a loud. What would happen would be this TV would turn on full volume on 0. So it would just all of a sudden, middle of night, pitch black, and the TV would just come on super loud. Scare the shit out of me.
That's got to be scary.
And keep in mind, this was when I was a little kid. So it was in the late 80s, early 90s. So I was very, very aware of poltergeist.
Yeah.
And so the first time that happened, it scared the living shit out of me.
That would have scared me too. I remember it's not that I called anybody. I was young, probably around the same age as that happened to you. But somebody called our house and it ended up being a fax machine. And I had never heard that terrifying sound in my life. That is those old fax screeching sounds.
Oh yeah.
That scared the holy shit out of me.
I
Even the
it.
household appliances were scarier when we were kids.
They really were. That's so funny.
Remember like how your toaster says, caution may explode, and just these weird warnings that you've never heard or seen of before. That actually happened to our toasters when we were young. If there's like a power surge and you were making fucking Eggos at the same time, there's going to be a fucking fire.
Yeah. You're not wrong. I mean, even look at Home Alone. The when he would go into the basement in the furnace, terrifying.
Yeah. Right, well, there's another story that Jeff talks about that I call the light. The ranch's general manager lived in a 5,000 square foot house on the ranch, about 1 mile from Jeff's house. Jeff says he couldn't even count how many rooms that place had. It was so big. But one morning, the crack of dawn, Jeff got a call from him in a panic. And he lived in, like I said, a big house with a lot of rooms. And this general manager, he didn't give his name. He didn't want to give his name out of privacy for the guy. But he said that he woke up to every light in the house on, including the 2 lamps on nightstands on both sides of his bed. And that freaked him out because that's pretty close to his fucking sleeping head. So he begged Jeff to come over. And when he went to leave his house, he found silverware on the threshold of the front door in the shape of a triangle. And he has pictures of this. And when he got to the general manager's property, he agreed to meet at this little detached office that was next to the house. And when they got there, they went to go into the office, and they again found another triangle made of silverware on the floor of the threshold in front of the door. And after a quick search, they realized that there was one of these triangles made of silverware on the threshold of every door on the fucking ranch. Everywhere. The doors.
What do you mean by everywhere?
Every door to every barn, office, shop. When he went to it, there was one of these triangles made of silverware on the floor in front of the door.
That's creepy. Again, though, it sounds like a fucking horror movie occult bullshit.
It does.
I wouldn't appreciate that if that was me.
Yeah, I think this is the last story I have on there. And again, go to his YouTube channel. He has other stories that I didn't cover here or in the original video that brought this to my attention. And he has, like I said, other stuff. And his channel's not just talks about weird shit he had while working on this ranch for 9 years. He's got how-to videos on there, stories about other shit, just about his life. So it's not like he made this YouTube channel just to talk about this stuff, which I found interesting. But this is a story about their local sheriff. Apparently, reports of strange glowing blue and green lights had been coming in for the past 2 years at this point. And Jeff said the sheriff did not ignore them. He vigorously tried to figure out what was going on with these lights. He was already on high alert due to all the cattle mutilations, and it had been happening so much that it started to impact the local ranchers financially, and in turn they had reached out to the local government for assistance. That I remember at one point, from what I remember, I think it was in 3 months' time they had 8 buffalo mutilated, which is a lot. That's like one and a half a month.
And think about like the size of a buffalo, even, you know?
Yeah. So the sheriff had been chasing these lights down whenever they were reported for the past 2 summers. These were not lights in the sky. They were just random lights appearing in local fields. So thinking he'd be able to catch whoever it was, him and his men responded to every one of the 27 reports over this 2-year period. So there were 27 reports of these ground level hovering lights reported in multiple fields in these ranch areas.
This stuff, I mean, it really does sound similar to Skinwalker, like with the lights in the fields. Like that was one of the things. They would have these small balls of light that were seen floating around, and a lot of there were times when they would be outside and the lights would just go zooming past them or zooming through the field right in front of them.
Yes, this activity I recognize is happening at Skinwalker Ranch as well. By this time that year, they were coming close to 30 cattle mutilations. So the owners of the ranch had invested in some pretty fancy gear to help stop the loss of product, including a pretty hefty CB radio. And one night, while on the hunt for these phantom lights, the sheriff called Jeff on a radio to let him know that he wanted to pass through the ranch to track these lights, just to keep searching and stay on top of it. Jeff told him there'd be no problem, that he would stay inside so he would know that it's not him fucking around out there or anything like that. And a while later, Jeff saw the sheriff pass by and head into the open fields. After some time, Jeff's radio started blaring with cries from the sheriff, exclaiming that he was surrounded, and that he said, I guess the phrase he said was, "I guess this is it." And Jeff yelled for him to get back to the house and that he'd be waiting and ready to assist him. And he said that a few moments later, the sheriff's Jeep came screaming up to the house, and the sheriff had both guns blazing. He said, I can see in the car he was driving with his fucking knee, and he had both of his 45s pointed at the best he could behind him, just unloading. And he was being chased by 5 blue and green lights.
And he's, wow. Did he say how big the lights were?
Jeff did. He said they're about the size of a small car. He said that as they approached the house, he watched them just basically overtake the sheriff's Jeep and pass him. And he shows a little formation in the video so you can see literally what he's talking about. But he said that sheriff was in a sheer terror panic mode. He said he never stopped. He never looked at Jeff. He kept driving and shot until he ran out of bullets. And that was it. He didn't see the sheriff again that night.
Wow, that's crazy.
Coincidentally, the sheriff was up for re-election in a few months, and Jeff explained that he was a shoo-in. Jeff said that his father was a police officer. He's grown up around cops his whole life. He said all his fishing buddies from a kid till now was mostly police officers. He's used to them, all that stuff. But about 4 weeks after this happened, being so traumatized by what he experienced by being chased and cornered by these lights, he turned in his badge and gun and resigned from his position before they can even vote, before the elections even happened.
So, because I haven't seen the videos, so obviously I'm just going by what you're telling me, and what you're telling me sounds very similar to Skinwalker, and somewhat similar to Stardust as well. But does the guy seem legit, or does he seem like, in telling the stories, like a crackpot that might be decapitating aliens?
I like the guy's mannerisms. He seems like the real deal. Talking about other things that were on his channel. I mean, he has a video that's called "How to Pack Out Two Dead Guys," and it's about.
What?
And like I said, Jeff is the real deal. He tells a story about how he was working as a search and rescue officer, and he had to go recover these two hunters high up in the mountains. He said that you got to be careful when you're high up in those Colorado mountains. He said the weather can turn, and he says it's not a matter of a storm hitting you. He said within 5 minutes you're going to be pinned down, and he says that there's no better lightning rod than a fully suited up horse. And he says that those guys get hit by lightning all the time, and two hunters did, and they had to go recover their bodies. And he had to explain to how he did that, which is crazy. And he said that they actually had to do 2 trips because one guy had 1 horse and the other guy had 2 horses. And he said that they were dead. They were fried to a crisp, but you can't leave the horse corpses there because if a bear stumbles across it, they'll eat them and then get a taste for horse meat, and then you have a real fucking problem on your hands.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, I mean, he sounds like a man of all trades. He knows, I mean, to work search and rescue. He said it took weeks. It took weeks to do this, to get that done. He talks about when they had bought the upgraded stuff for the ranch to try to stop the loss of the buffalo and cattle, that they got him a fully loaded fucking AK-47 kit with Russian night scope on it. And I mean, he mentioned that he knew how to handle it, even as an older man or older gentleman. So apparently he had some military training, and he seems like a very pleasant guy. Why not, Mike? I'm going to send you a link to one of his videos right now, and I want you to watch it. They're all like 4 minutes, and then we'll get your reaction of what you think of this guy real quick.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, his manner of speaking is very straightforward. He doesn't sound like he is making it up, but maybe he's just a good storyteller. I don't know. I don't know anything about the guy.
Right. Then that's the impression I got from him too. He's just relaying his stories. Like I mean, I think the little tagline for his videos is, stories from a life well lived, and that's exactly what he seems like to me. He has a story about this dog he has saving him from a buffalo mauling him to death. He's been through some shit, apparently hiking dead bodies out of the fucking snowy mountains of Colorado.
Damn. So it's not all paranormal stuff then?
No.
Okay. Cool.
So what do you think? Is this a little bit less nutty than Stardust for you?
Yeah, it's definitely less nutty. I don't know if I'd be willing to say it's true or not, but it's definitely, out of the ranch stories we've covered, to me this is the least weird, I guess. I mean, which is not to say it's not weird, but to me, this symbol that keeps turning up, it makes me think that there's human involvement.
Right.
But that mystery is still there. Like, how are they doing these mutilations? But that's the mystery for all the mutilations. How are these mutilations happening? And where's the blood? How are they able to make these surgical maneuvers without cuts? Like, it's weird. How's it happen?
Right. It'd probably be a little bit hard for a couple of cultists to do in the middle of a field at night.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, the silverware those silver triangles that were found all over in that instance they discovered they were the general manager's silverware. They came from inside his house.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that, man. Like, is somebody involved in it that they know, or like, why? I don't know. It's weird.
Well, in this video where I first got this information from, like I said, they gave me a link right to his YouTube channel, which was wonderful to see. and very helpful. It made it easy to talk about what we're covering tonight. I got to hear it from his mouth. It was great to see the guy tell a story like this. And they also provided another piece of information. When this was going on, the people really, really, really nagged the local government for help.
Really?
Really, really nagged for help. So
Interesting. That takes a new turn.
they asked for the FBI to come investigate what was going on. They really tried to get the government involved in helping them with this. It was happening, like I said, for years before Jeff got to the ranch. It happened the whole time he was at the ranch. He was there for 9 years. It was probably going on after. But they have a link, which I think I emailed to you, Mike. If you don't have it, let me know. I'll send it to you because I want you to take a look at where it comes from. It's on like archive.com. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's official government stuff.
Oh, archive.org?
Yeah.
No, that's not official government.
Okay. But apparently somebody has issued a Freedom of Information Act request on all the documentation that was correspondence with the FBI and the local government and the governor of this state. And I emailed it to you, and I don't know what to make of it. It's fucking weird mumbo jumbo. There's certain parts to where it's a clear letter, but then there's parts like that's jumbled up like a transcription of somebody typing over these letters who maybe were on acid. And, like there's misspellings, like instead of like Colorado, it'll say Bolorado. It'll have like no spacing in some parts and all jumbled. But it appears to be official.
Oh, so this was originally from Above Top Secret is the one that filed the Freedom of Information request.
Okay.
So that's, what's his name? Oh, who's the guy that runs Above Top Secret? It's, he's on a lot of those. I'm pretty sure he's been on Ancient Aliens. He's been on UFO Hunters. I cannot think of his name. Anyway, it's irrelevant for the case for this case.
But there's supposedly a bunch of official documentation that, I mean, they mentioned the sheriff retiring. There's letters from many people talking to the FBI, informing them of what's going on, mentioning the mutilations. I even came across a part in it, and I tried to read through it all, about to where there was a reporter that was getting reports from witnesses saying that there was military helicopters seen in the area during some of these mutilations. And that reporter was threatened and told not to say that, not to release that information. And I think that was even a letter from like his lawyer or something trying to communicate with the FBI. Because,
like what? Like a cease and desist sort of thing?
No, like he was physically threatened. Like, don't, something will happen to you.
Oh, shit. So
yeah.
they weren't fucking around.
No. And I think there's this correspondence was actually from his lawyer trying to contact somebody in the FBI. And they name who made the threat. I think it ended up being somebody who was like a government official for that state, telling them not to fucking look into this anymore. Don't say anything about it. But I don't know if you got it, but you can take a look at it and see how legit that looks. I wouldn't know what transcribed government official documents would fucking look.
I mean, I know that Above Top Secret has been, they do a lot of Freedom of Information requests. So I would have to think if they are posting it, that it's probably legitimate.
Okay. I'm glad you caught that. I didn't see that anywhere. So it looks, I mean, everything in these documents, everything that I read backs up everything good old Jeff says. I mean, even down to the sheriff leaving early, quitting, all the reports of the lights, mutilations. So it's apparently all true. On the surface, all true.
Crazy.
This case has some heavy documentation.
I like the cases where that like, if you're making shit up, you're not going to beg the government for help. That's just not going to happen.
Right.
Like even on the Skinwalker Ranch, he didn't beg the government for help.
He was saying something to the effect of, you get to like 20 missing buffalo, you're looking at $50,000 that somebody's lost. So when it became a financial thing, they demanded that stuff being done. I mean, even while losing cattle, the people who own Buffalo Ranch bought them and everybody that worked there. There's a couple other people that worked there. Some people who came in seasonally, younger people that would work on the ranch, and they had fucking guns for all of them. Fucking night vision goggles, CB radios. They didn't rely on walkie-talkies. They had their own fucking station basically set up. So it was fucking seriously happening at an alarming rate. Spending money while they're losing money. It doesn't make sense. It must have been more than a necessity.
I mean, what else can you do? Just cut the heads off some fucking aliens and call it a day, I guess.
Yeah. Well, another thing I came across when I started looking this up, this one other story, and this is a story I found on a website. I'll put it in the show notes as well. But it talks about a place that's called Buffalo Ranch, and some things, this person tells a story, and it has some things in it that are almost match up to what's happening in Jeff's stories. I sent that to you, Mike. You mind reading that?
I grew up at Genesee Buffalo Ranch, just west of Denver, Colorado. My father is still the ranch's caretaker and lives in the two-story house built by the Patrick family in the 1860s. Headed west from Missouri, the Patricks and their 5 boys built the house and operated a stage stop on Genesee Mountain. When we moved into the house, the former caretaker lived in a house trailer in the backyard. His wife would not set foot in the main house because she saw strange things and said the house was haunted. When I was about 12, I remember a night when my mother was upstairs screaming hysterically as our dog barked loudly at the wall. My dad and I ran upstairs to see what the commotion was all about. When we arrived, she related that she had seen a floating, glowing green ball go down the hall and disappear through the wall, like Slimer. I slept with the covers over my head for the next several weeks. The next haunting came about 6 months later, a night that still feels as if it happened yesterday. As I was sleeping, my father woke me up and asked me if I could hear music in the house. Barely I could make out the faint sounds of a fiddle or a violin. Dad had already checked all the radios, and they were not turned on. We searched for the music source and went downstairs, where you hear the music coming from the upper story and vice versa. When we went outside, we could still hear the music coming from the house. We continued to hear the haunting music a couple more times that same year. A few years later, we received a book from a local historian describing the complete history of the house and the Patrick family, information that was unknown to us until we read that book. The first murder in Jefferson County happened in our front yard in the 1870s, when one of the Patrick brothers shot and killed another brother in a dispute over a dog. The brother he killed was known to be very lazy, and the only thing he liked to do was sit around and play his fiddle. When I read this and remember the fiddle music during those nights, a cold electric sweat ran through my body. We also found out that the boy's father is buried somewhere in the yard, but there is no marker. The house has been peaceful now for several years, but hopefully, the Patricks are now at peace. I still get a chill when I hear fiddle music.
So that was written by a man named Jason Homola. So thank you for that, good sir. But I mean, do you think this is the same place here?
Sure sounds like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, loud music in the middle of the night, colored balls of light flying everywhere.
I wonder if it is the same place or if it's a different place just in the same region.
Yeah. Well, let us know what you guys think about this case. I love it. Check out his videos. Like I said, I don't know if I said it earlier, but he hasn't put out a video in 2 years, so I don't know if he's still doing this, or hopefully he's all right, and we'll see some new videos. He said he can go on for days, so I find it strange that he's stopped. But yeah, definitely let us know about this ranch. What does it rank on your ranch of weirdness scale?
I would put it at a solid 6.5.
You didn't cut off one alien head, or else it would have been at least a 9.
Oh yeah, you cut off alien heads, you're gonna be at least a 9.5 right out the gates, and then anything else that happens just puts you automatically in a 10. It's like, oh, you chopped off alien heads? That's a 9 level of weirdness. Oh yeah, not only that, but my dog got killed, and it looked like he got run over by a steamroller in the barn. Okay, yeah, that's a 10.
Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? Try the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.